we created a third curriculum in the form of allyship. So really trying to hit all the marks of gender-based violence prevention, ones that benefit the bystander, the targets, and also approach people who might not know that they are being aggressors or doing microaggressions or things like that. So trying to find a way to connect all the dots to make sure that that prevention piece is accessible for everybody in the industry.
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods. Hello, this is Cynthia Chaplin, and today I am so happy to have Amie Ward as my guest on Voices. Amie's based in Baltimore, Maryland, in the U.S., where she's the president of the Baltimore Bartenders Guild, which is a mouthful to try and say, a certified health coach, a mobility specialist, and most importantly for our conversation today, she's the executive director of Safe Bars, which is the leader in gender-based violence prevention for the hospitality industry. So this is going to be a super important conversation, Amie. I'm so glad that you came on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, you've got degrees from the University of Maryland in Kinesiology, I can't even say that word, and exercise science. So I'm dying to know how, first of all, how you say that word, but secondly, how did you go from that sort of academic, educational background and into the beverage and hospitality industry?
Yeah, so great question. First of all, it's kinesiology. You could also say exercise physiology, or basically I studied the body and movement. So I'm obsessed with the body. And so I've always been involved in sports and movement. I actually started as a dancer before I got into sports. So my obsession with sports is what led me into the kinesiology program. I had experienced a ACL tear, an anterior cruciate ligament tear in my right knee very early on in my sports journey, and the process of going through that surgery and the physical therapy that was affiliated with it afterwards really had me further obsessed with the body in a more scientific perspective, and I wanted to pursue that. And I started in hospitality when I was 14. So even before I had hurt myself, I was a dishwasher in a crab house in Annapolis, Maryland, which is, if you're in Maryland or on the East Coast, it's a very East Coast, Mid-Atlantic thing to do. So I had started there, but I went the route of academia and thought I was going to do academia. And I was kind of struck by, in my undergrad studies, I did a thesis on homophobia in women's sport. And so got into the more like cultural perspective of sport in my undergrad. And my advisors had asked me to come apply for the master's program because they saw my perspective in the way that I wrote and thought I could be an advocate and an asset to their physical cultural studies program. So I did that. And was looking at power, body, labor, things that we deal with, and things that I discuss within my work now. So got some early starts there, and I think ultimately there's like way more details and sob stories associated with it. But the academia route in publish or perish did not seem very appealing to me, and I was in a very conservative space. So like the program, which belonged in a sociology department, was actually in the public health department, which was previously the physical education department, which was a very conservative, male dominated space. And it really wasn't super fitting for me. So I, along the way, I had also been bartending, working in coffee shops, doing every bit you can think of within hospitality. So I just decided to go back that route instead, because I enjoyed talking to strangers for a living way more than I did dealing with the conservative groups trying to tell me how I should look and how I should behave, even though what I was saying and doing was far more important than my physical appearance. So kind of a long-winded way of story. I still just chose talking to strangers and working with strangers at the end of the day, but eventually found a way to merge my two worlds back together again down the road.
Talking to strangers for a living is something I can really relate to. So it's such a cool story because it really sort of runs parallel to a lot of what we experience in the wine and beverage industry, where it's even still it's a very male dominated place, white male dominated, old white male. I mean, I could add more adjectives. And I live in Italy, so it's even more extreme. So it's interesting that your academic career was affected by that as well. And then you headed into hospitality, which has similar problems. So you were probably just in the exactly right place at the right time to bring your academic knowledge to bear on what you were doing. So let's just jump right in there and start talking about Safe Bars. This was founded by Lauren Taylor in 2013. Out of a really dire need for greater safety in the hospitality industry. All of us who have worked in it have all seen it, felt it, been part of it. The idea was to work with bartenders and servers and others, to create a way to stop sexual violence in alcohol serving spaces, which is an issue that does not get enough airspace, honest to God. Safe Bar's mission was to create safe, equitable, inclusive hospitality spaces. So this is something that is really near and dear to my heart, also yours, I know. When did you join Safe Bars, and what's your role as executive director now?
Sure. The first time I experienced Safe Bars was in 2016. Lauren Taylor had come, because Baltimore and DC are neighbors. She did a training for Baltimore during our Baltimore Cocktail Week back then in 2016. And I really fell in love with the curriculum. I also, Lauren is such a kind and compassionate and empathetic person. And I think if you're working in gender-based violence prevention, you absolutely have to be that. It's in you. It's a soft skill. It's an innate skill. You're born with it. She was very kind when we were talking about ways in which we intervened in situations that we didn't like at the bar. And by that time, I had been working in a dive bar for most of everything, where I feel like the most comfortable, because those are my people. You can just come as you are, and you get every single type of human that walks in that space, and it's beautiful. And they're like, well, what do you do when you see bad things happening? I was like, oh, well, I jump over the bar and kick the person out, obviously. And I love telling the story because she was just so kind and paused for a moment and said, yeah, so that is absolutely a strategy that you can take. It might not be your safest one. So let's talk about other options. And, she showed me a level of empathy I really hadn't, and compassion that I hadn't experienced from anyone beforehand. And it was really an eye-opening moment, an aha moment for me, because I realized at that time the strategies I had been taking to create a safe space in the bars that I was working at was very much self-serving and put me at risk. So it wasn't helping create a conversation about the behavior. It wasn't helping set a correct expectation for other people in the space, whether they be guests or my coworkers. So it really gave me a much broader view of how I needed to think about impacting others. I mean, I'm very much a community oriented person. I'm a helper. That is, some people are just born that way. Like, I talk to strangers and I like to help people. That is my happy place. And so I, continued to stay in touch with Lauren, took trainings again. And in 2018, I had an opportunity to become a trainer because the Baltimore Bartenders Guild started their own chapter of Safe Bars with Lauren's help. And so I had been training since that time and began training with Lauren through the national organization. And eventually, in early 22, maybe it was late 21, she was like, I think it's time I finally have the funds to be able to hire somebody as an executive director. And as the founder, she was going to have the opportunity to go back to the organization that she started originally, which is called Defend Yourself. And because she started as a self-defense trainer, and that's really where her heart lies. And so started the process of the interviewing for that position and became the executive director in October of 22. And in my role there, like the first piece of the puzzle was really putting systems in place, because even though the organization had been around for almost 10 years at that point in time, it was not not a lack of priority or lower priority, but it was a concept. It was a thing that kind of took off very wildly at the height of the pandemic, or at the beginning of the pandemic, and in conjunction with the Me Too movement, and really needed some systems and strategies put in place to get it organized. And then from there, it's been trying to talk about the mission of safe bars and safety in the bar spaces in a way that's digestible for people like us. You know, we have such a beautiful like subculture within hospitality, and like sometimes it's wine sticks with wine and beer sticks with beer and spirit sticks with spirit, and we each have our own little subsets of subcultures in there. But being able to kind of break through those barriers and present this knowledge in a way that is accessible and makes sense to the people that we're training is really what we've been doing since then. So being able to get into more bars and restaurants and do our training with the bystander intervention and de-escalation, which was born out of the pandemic, and be able to get into like conference spaces and be able to show people in conference spaces how much we need to get that training for the event staff and volunteers who work in these like spaces, global events where hundreds of thousands of people are coming into play, and they don't necessarily have the tools to keep themselves and other people safe. So we've been doing a whole lot of that over the last couple of years, really just trying to spread the gospel of safe bars. And in the meantime, also, we created a third curriculum in the form of allyship. So really trying to hit all the marks of gender-based violence prevention, ones that benefit the bystander, the targets, and also approach people who might not know that they are being aggressors or doing microaggressions or things like that. You know, so trying to find a way to connect all the dots to make sure that prevention piece is accessible for everybody in the industry.
So let me ask you. This is such an important. Like I don't even have the right adjective, to describe this program. And as you said, it kind of blew up faster than you could actually get the training wheels on. So you've been there for just a couple of years. And how do people access you? How does this curriculum work? Do they come to you in person for training? Is this online? Do you go to them? How do you roll these programs out? I mean, obviously, you're working on lots of different tiers of small bars, big events. I'm a 20-year veteran of Vini Italy, so I know what that looks like. But how does it work actually in practice? How do you get this training to people? How do they find you?
It used to be that we were only doing this in person, and we had an opportunity, take the good with what came of the pandemic, where we transitioned our training online. So it became, we vetted the curriculum to make sure that it was accessible in an online format. And now people can access us we go there in person. We also I've made a really concerted effort to get trainers trained up throughout the US and be able to pull some of the trainers that we have in our smaller chapters that are really great, so we can use them and make it more accessible to people if they want to do it in person. But we also have that opportunity to train online via Zoom. So we can do it all, whatever really works best for the group.
It's such a cool thing. So you're rolling it out across the whole US?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, yep.
Yeah. I'd say so from 2013 up until about maybe 2016, 2017, we only trained in person in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, what I call the DMV. And then Lauren had launched our chapters, which is basically taking our curriculum, giving our curriculum to smaller community organizations so that they can start their own Safe Bars chapter and make it very much dialed into what that specific community needs. So that started around 2017, where we started creating these smaller chapters across the US. And we were out in Seward, Alaska. We were in Portland, Maine, and, all over the place. But it was, I think, after when the pandemic hit and we transitioned to online and everybody had access to us that way, once that was done, we started training way more all over the US. And in Canada as well. So we've been able to we've been able to really access a lot of people because of our transition into the online curriculum.
Well, it's just incredible what you've managed to accomplish in such a short period of time, and we really need things like this rolled out in Europe. So, you know, when you have a spare minute in your, start turning your head to how to roll this out in Europe. But I know that within the Safe Bars framework, you're also the director of HERD. And this is a different program, a program that faces on peer-to-peer support and mental health resources for food and beverage, service industry, people involved in that. So how does that program work? And how many people have been involved in HERD since you started?
Sure. HERD was started so the peer-to-peer support organization was started out of the pandemic as well. It was a couple of Baltimore bartenders who started something that was originally called just the Online Industry Check-In. And we made a place on every Monday night where people in our industry who were stuck at home and couldn't work would be able to meet up with their peers. So we started the industry check-in back in the pandemic, and about almost a year into it, we were approached by Joel Rivas, who was the founder of Saint City Culinary Foundation and had started a program called HERD, which was in-person peer-to-peer support groups for people navigating sobriety, mental health, general wear and tear of being in the industry. He's said that, hey, all of our in-person chapters are on pause right now because of the pandemic. Could we pool our resources together and make you all the national online chapter of HERD? And we were very pumped about that. So we made that transition. And then after the pandemic, it was ultimately decided for Saint City Culinary Foundation to close up shop. And so HERD became, Joel asked if I wanted to have HERD, and I said yes. I don't want that to go away. So originally I had folded the organization or looped it up into my health coaching business. But because of the nonprofit status that we have with Safe Bars, it felt a little bit better to put it into there. And because it's an accessible resource for everybody that we train just the same. So we have been doing that since the pandemic. We took a break during the summertime. We're actually relaunching this Monday, restarting HERD as, again, that space on Mondays for people to come and check in. We had previously always had a theme for the night of things we wanted to talk about, but we're going to transition it to just be more of an open discussion, so people can come in there and use that space as they need. And it's a really beautiful thing. Like the people that started this program with me are sober bartenders. And while I am definitely the advocate for conscientious, mindful choices, I ebb and flow out of what my relationship with alcohol is in terms of whether I'm going to be drinking or not. So it was good to have all those different perspectives that were in there. So we have people who are needing assistance with sobriety. We have people who are on that journey, and they also don't find AA is very accessible to them because we're non-secular. We want to make sure that, this can be spirituality means whatever to anybody in this space rather than it's very much dedicated to one style. And we also wanted that space for people navigating mental health, which again, I've been a huge advocate for that as well, can have a space where they can talk through different things that are going on with their bar, ways in which they're feeling about being in the space or dealing with the social climate or whatever it might be. It's really just a beautiful open access space for people in our industry to create community and find support amongst their peers. So that again, it's now a full program of Safe Bars. We are relaunching on Monday, November 11th. And, it's really just I'm so fortunate to be around people who care about the community this much that want to create this space for their peers.
You are so lucky, and I think the culture in the U.S. around the beverage industry and hospitality is so different from what it is like in Europe. So having a space like that to talk about it, to share everybody's perspective, everybody's impressions and experiences is something we really don't have. So I think it's hopefully inspirational to people listening from other places. But I know Safe Bars is collaborating now with 86 Harassment. I spoke to Deb Brenner not long ago from Women of Vine and Spirits, and I want to just talk about this because this is another program with some really key goals and interesting things coming forward. So tell me a little bit about 86 harassment and how it started and the goals and how Safe Bars is collaborating.
Yeah. So 86 Harassment was born from obviously the group over at Women in Wine and Spirits, and they wanted to create this global platform where all resources that would help contribute to us ending gender-based violence in the hospitality industry was set up. I approached them probably this time last year, maybe a little bit later, to ask how we could become involved, because I knew that they were doing Women of Wine and Spirits before 86 Harassment was actually launched, was doing trainings with Rain, and they were, geared towards the hospitality industry. And I had taken one and I liked it because I always love the content that Rain puts out. And I thought there was an opportunity to bring more dialed into bartenders, dialed into front of house workers that we could have. And so we discussed doing that. And so we decided in this past year, so in August, September, and October, we did 3 different trainings on their platform, on the 86 Harassment platform. And we did our active bystander training, our de-escalation training, and then our allyship training. So we could see how it landed with everybody, in hopes that we could come around next year and have a more consistent presence on the 86 Harassment platform. So it's really nice. It's another vehicle to get this content and this information out to people. I know that, you'll see a variety of different style trainings that are on there, and Safe Bars is definitely the longer version of things, but that's because we really want to ground people. That comes from me doing a research program where I had to write a book at the end of the day, right? You want to ground people in the moment and have them understand and contextualize their experience of being a part of the industry. So not just telling people what the problem is and here's how to solve it. It's providing the background, making sure that they understand where their connection to it is and why this is so important for this information to get out. And then we actually have people practicing the skills that we teach them. And our goal 100%, instead of like coming in as a lecture, if you're doing like an hour lecture with somebody and telling them what they need to do, we invite conversation to happen and like have the teams co-create the knowledge together, because it's really about getting people in that atmosphere to share their experiences. So everybody can understand what we're all actually dealing with on a regular basis. Because some people harassment and aggression doesn't touch them, or they think about it differently, or they're socialized differently, or they excuse certain behaviors because it doesn't bother them, but it does bother other people. And we're really trying to make sure that all people's experiences can be heard at the same space. So it's been really nice to, we usually work with just an individual establishment where they already have rapport with one another and they're familiar. And that's where that co-creation knowledge really comes up fast. And in this space, it's a new challenge. And I always like being challenged because I obviously a little bit ADHD here. So being able to establish rapport with these new people that don't know each other, that are coming from all facets of the industry, is a beautiful challenge. And it's another opportunity for them to see how each other is impacted by this really important training that we're doing. So it's been a wonderful experience being able to work with them. And we're looking forward to chatting through 2025 and see what that looks like, so we can hopefully get some more trainings up on their calendar.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it is exciting. And it's great to know that you're creating a space where people can have those conversations without, feeling judged for their choices and, or their shortcomings or whatever, is on their mind. And allows them to stay in an industry that most of us love. But I've worked in the industry. Of course, everybody starts off young, and sometimes you feel like you have to get out. And it's great that you're creating a space for people to be able to choose to stay in, and feel positive about what they're doing. So I know you've been really personally committed to health advocacy for the beverage alcohol community for a long, long time, obviously. And you founded the Healthtender in 2017. So what did you have in mind when you began that? And how is the Healthtender working alongside all of your other roles at the moment? You've got over 3,000 followers now on Instagram. So somebody's paying attention to what you're saying with Healthtender. Tell me a bit about that.
The impetus behind the Healthtender was really a way to get information about physical health out to to the industry. I started it, and I love telling this story too, of like, I was always the bartender that had treats in my apron. I had pocket nuts at all time. Obviously, can't always have nuts because of allergens and stuff like that. But I jokingly always had pocket nuts, and I had my blender bottle on me at all times. I had that and water or protein powder like in my blender bottle while I'm at work. And after work, after shift, I would go to the gym rather than go out to drink. And people kind of looked at me very goofy and didn't understand why I would do that. And it dawned on me that everything I knew about physical health, because of being an athlete and because of having the formal education that I have, was missing in this hospitality sphere, because it just isn't something that people had access to. So while it's completely ingrained in my body, there was this disconnect between my peers. And so I wanted to bridge that gap and show people how they can make their body not hurt like hell after being on it for an absurd amount of time, because we're expected to do way more with our bodies than what most people in a working atmosphere are asked to do. We're asked to do more with our bodies than a lot of athletes are. So I did this as a way to try to teach people in our industry to treat themselves like athletes, tell them that they're endurance athletes, and teach them how to fuel their body appropriately, how to stretch their body, how to move in ways that make sense for the space, because ergonomically, there is nary a bar. There's very few bars that are actually designed for people to like be physically comfortable in. And the opportunities that have come up to change that, which is like creating those cockpits and things that we can like step into for our well rather than getting cut off at the knees, are not accessible because they're so expensive. So, and hopefully that won't be the case for so long, but really teaching people how to like use their body to their advantage in the space, since a space is not designed for their bodies. So tips and tricks on how to, basically how to engage your core at all times, but how to stand and adjust your stance to work within a specific confine of what you have, whether it's a teeny tiny well or you're sharing it with multiple people, or if you're a person who's a server and like running drinks out or running food out. And like, so I really wanted to bridge that gap on overall physical health and wellness and bring that to the community. And I was really happy that when I did my first discussion, I had an opportunity to do in like April of 2016, or rather it was December of 2015 that I did my bartender education for the Baltimore Bartenders Guild. I did a 15-minute presentation on how to have snacks at the bar. And I got samples of snacks from people like Justin's Nut Butter and like the Power Protein Waffles and all these different things that are normal to me. And people were like, hey, this is actually really tasty. I was like, yeah, you don't have to go 12 hours without eating, or like, you don't have to do these things. And it was super well received there. And I happened to do that talk at the time when Lindsay Johnson, who is the founder of Lush Life Productions, was there in Baltimore touring, because in April we were going to have Baltimore Bar Institute. So she was scouting locations of where we could hold different events during that time. And she heard that talk that I gave, that very small presentation, and said, people need this. Like, you need to figure out we need you to do this on a larger scale because people need this information. So it was very affirming to have that feedback at the time. And then come April of 2016, I did a larger 1-hour presentation on, it was called Check Yourself Before You Wreck Yourself, because I love to name everything after rap songs, and talked about the general health risks that we experience being in the industry, whether it's physical, repetitive motion injuries, or nutritional deficiencies, or mental health issues because of the emotional labor and secondary trauma that we experience in there. And I went through the whole gamut of what we can experience in this space and why it's important for people to pay attention to those things, and some accessible ways in which they can actually kind of counteract this. And it was well received. I was not really experiencing that because, even in 2015, 2016, I don't think people were taking their health and wellness quite as seriously as everybody is now. I mean, we see that in the way that people are changing their attitude towards drinking, and why NA is like on the huge rise and it's like growing by 32%. And, it was easy because it's my love, and I'm a jock, a meathead. I call myself that all the time, and I talk about wellness all the time because I love the body and I love people feeling good in their bodies. And so it was really easy to start that and then transition from there, from just giving talks to now I was teaching movement classes. So normally what you would call a workout class or a fitness class, but I called it a movement class because I want to hit those people that do not like the gym, would never find themselves in the gym, have been ostracized by the gym, so people can find a way to move their body in ways that feel good and ways in which they're able to dial in and it starts at accessible and then has challenges added to it if people want it, but it starts at baseline accessible for all bodies. And yeah, so that's my love, the love of my life, the Healthtender. So it's fun because I am the Healthtender. So people call me the Healthtender. So as I'm like still navigating how to manage being in the space of like running safe bars and also doing Healthtender work, I'm still able to work with coaching clients on the side and provide them the materials and resources that they need. I'm able to teach classes at different conferences, trying to work on getting something set back up in Baltimore where I can do more regular workout classes with my guild. I do anything possible to trick people into moving their bodies in really nice ways and like finding ways in which they can put good stuff into their body that makes them feel better. I just want people to love on their bodies and feel good on a regular basis. So because it is my like alter ego / is who I am, it's very easy to fold into everything that I talk about when it comes to safe bars, when I'm out and about, or when I'm teaching, and when I'm just being me. So
Well, as if you didn't have enough to do with all of that list that you yourself just listed off, you're also the beverage director for Camp Run Amok. Like, I love this idea. This sounds absolutely fantastic. The first summer camp designed for bartenders. I mean, how fun is this? I want to go. I want to ask about this because there are so many people out there. I can see where you're going with this, so I'm pretty sure I know where the answer is going to sort of hang on this format. But when did Camp Run Amok start, and how many people attend on an annual basis? What's the itinerary? Tell us everything about this. I want people to get excited, and we should all go to Camp Run Amok.
Yes. So Camp Run Amok is a magical thing that came from Lush Life Productions. Again, Lindsay Johnson, who wanted to start a space where bartenders could come and learn more about their craft. So basically it's an adult bartender summer camp where they go to the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, and then they go out on field trips every single day and they learn about whiskey production. And while they're away doing that, I'm running the beverage program back on the kids' campsite. And we have anywhere from 4 to 5 activations during the day. When they come back and there's a pool party. And then there's like square dancing, and then there's a nighttime activity, and then there's a campfire. So whatever it might be, my team is building all the drinks on the back end for that. I believe camp just celebrated its 10-year. I think it started in either 2011 or 2012. I need to double check on that. I can help out with that afterwards. And I first attended, it started as just one session per week in the earlier days. And by the time that I got there in 2016, it was 2 different weeks out of the year. One in May, one started on Memorial Day, I believe. So like May into June, and then August is when we had it. And then we also threw in some alumni sessions as well. So I went for my first time in 2016. 2016 was a very, very big year for me of like learning, growing, and figuring out some stuff. And I went after that first time, and I enjoyed it, but I also have always really liked, again, I'm a helper. I like being on the back end. I like being on the event side and the production side of things. So I had an opportunity to come back and be on the beverage team for one session. And then I asked if I could run it after that. They're like, how did you like it? What would you like to do? I was like, can I run that thing? And so they are, I guess boldness pays off. And they gave me a chance on doing that. And so I've been running the beverage program since 2017 at camp. And basically, it is 2 weeks out of the year. And I'd say I'd spend like probably another 2 months prepping for it in terms of working with different suppliers that are going to be sponsoring things and understanding what they want to see for each activation and coming up with those drink menus, and working with the team that we choose of like we basically, anybody on leadership for camp is people who are already a camper, and then they come back and they get to be in a leadership position, whether it's as a counselor, on the beverage team, they could be on chef team, they could also be part of a team, which is basically the people who set up the events, the people who take out all the trash, all the heart and soul of the space. um, the other part is really like working with my team and trying to get them to have buy-in to the program as well. So I hand out drinks to them. I was like, I need you to create a drink for this style of thing using this product, and here's the other things that we have access to. So it's a beautiful experience, and like it has also transitioned to where when I'm there, I've also had the opportunity to teach classes, or I teach water aerobics during a pool party as the Healthtender, or we've also had herd sessions there, which is, giving space for people to talk, because it is a lot to go away and be around 200 new humans. That it's a lot of overwhelm, it's a lot of feels, it's a lot of overstimulation. So giving people space for that, or people who are navigating their own sobriety while they're at a whiskey camp, making sure that they have space and access to be able to have that too. And then with safe bars over the last couple of years, Lindsay, Lush Life and Camp Run Amok, we've been working together with safe bars to create an anonymous reporting system, so that if anything were to happen at that space, people have a safe, anonymous way to report it. And then I can attend to those things, whether I need to make recommendations for mediation based upon like what they tell me they need or what they have seen, or we need to ask somebody to leave, or we need to change rooms, we need to do any of those things. That's in place because of the anonymous reporting system. And also for the last, time is a flat circle, so I cannot quite remember, but I think for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been doing safe bars, active bystander training for each group that comes in prior to them arriving at camp. So they know what the ground rules are for consent and behavior, and what they're expected to do when they're in that space. That way, nothing is unclear to people. And that's part of what we do within safe bars, is trying to teach people, like, this is hospitality. You design a space that you want people to have an experience in. And so you get to set the ground rules for how people are expected to act and operate and conduct themselves in that space. So it's the same exact thing. We get to say, this is how you're going to be in this setting at camp. And, consent rules at the end of the day. And so it's been really cool. I love my time at camp. It is absolutely one of the most like rewarding experiences to have, to see like, OG bartenders who have been in the game forever come through for their first time and experience it, and experience the joy that comes from it, to brand new bartenders and seeing their eyes light up and the aha moments that come from there, and just watching people get inspired. So it's a happy place. And I'm so glad that I have those two weeks out of the year that I get to go to Lebanon Junction, Kentucky, and run this thing at a kids camp. And the other part, which like speaks to my style of bartending, is, so I'm the batch queen. I love batching large things. I love making sure that something tastes good in batch form and can go out to 200 people quickly, and they love it. We're also currently working with kids camp facilities. So like, I don't have access to tons of power and tons of ingredients and tons of things. So we make magic happen with less. One of the funniest things, we had a sponsorship with Poli-Sci a couple years ago. Like, I think it was 2018 or 2019. And I got an anti-gravity plate to play with, which like would flash freeze anything that I wanted. So I was like doing these chocolate covered cherries for one of the drinks I was on, but there wasn't enough power supply to actually in the building to actually make that device run. So didn't work out. So there's like all these hilarious like hiccups that come with it being a kids camp. But Lush Life did recently purchase that camp property. So things are going to change in the next couple of years. We don't know what it is, but there might be more power in my future, which is really exciting.
If you're doing all this with no power, I can't wait to see where this goes when you've got some massive generator. But before I let you go, I have got to talk about your amazing hobby, because this blew me away. I love it. You like pulling trucks and competing in strong woman competitions. So how the heck did this happen? How did you get involved in this? It's not like every morning you wake up and you think, I'll just go pull a truck. How did this come about?
I mean, you don't think about pulling trucks on a regular basis?
I do now.
that actually came after the end of my roller derby career.
Oh my God, I never even got to that.
So I played roller derby for 10 years, and at the end of my career, I was deep into running bars and really could not pull myself away to give the commitment to roller derby that needed to happen. And so a couple of the other retired roller derby people were doing strongman, and I'm like, okay, well, I like lifting weights. Let's check it out. And then got to find out that you get to take your normal lifts, normal Olympic lifting, which is like your deadlift, your squat, your overhead press, your bench press, and you get to do the same thing but with weird objects. So I get to pull a truck instead of I get to pull a truck behind me or in front of me. I get to deadlift a car. I get to lift a giant metal barrel over my head as a press instead of just a barbell. So it's so goofy because it's like comically leaning towards the sideshow strong man, strong woman kind of thing of like the objects that you're manipulating. But it's great. It's a little bit different for me because it's a little more individualized as a sport, and I'm very much a team is everything to me. So team oriented sports are my happy place. So you do have to like make your own community a little bit more actively in that space, but it's really fun. You're working against yourself. You're working like no matter how much you lift or don't lift, you're still trying this very ridiculous feat of strength, which is really just a beautiful thing. So even if I can't deadlift that car one more time, I've still done it once. Or, hey, you tried to deadlift a car. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I just like, I love being strong. I love being self-sufficient, independent. And I love, watching strong people do strong things and watching all different types of bodies be able to put these ridiculous amounts of weight above them, behind them, in front of them, on, whatever it might be. It's such a cool space.
I love it. I love what you said. A ridiculous feat of strength is a beautiful thing. And yeah, strength is not always physical. Strength can be emotional and mental. And I think you have really covered every single one of those bases. You have the most amazing energy. So I know that whatever you put your hand to is going to be lit up. So I can't wait to see what you've got coming in the next few years. And you have just like boosted my day massively. So I really am so grateful that you came on. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate you reaching out. This is really great.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.